There are secrets buried not in the earth, but in the silence of forgotten places, in the hollow echo of unspoken names. Secrets that cling to the very fabric of history, a festering wound beneath the polished veneer of accepted truth. You believe you know the world, its rules, its gods. You believe in order, in justice, in the comforting lie of consequence. But what if I told you that the deepest shadows are not merely absences of light, but entities vast and ancient that cast their own dominion? What if the narratives you've been fed, the lullabies of progress and freedom, are merely clever veils, designed to obscure the true architects of your reality? This is not a story for the faint of heart, nor for those content with the crumbs of knowledge tossed from the tables of power. This is for the awakened, for those whose minds yearn to breach the walls of illusion, to grasp the raw, terrifying truth that pulses beneath the surface of our curated existence. Tonight, we will journey into a darkness so profound, so utterly consuming, that it will challenge the very foundations of your perception. We will speak of names whispered only in the deepest corners of collective fear, of events erased from every public record, yet etched into the very essence of human suffering. Prepare yourselves, for once you hear these truths, once you gaze upon the abyss I am about to unveil, there will be no turning back. The comfort of ignorance will shatter, replaced by the chilling clarity of a reality far more sinister, far more controlled than you could ever conceive. The air itself will feel different, heavy with the weight of unspeakable acts, of a pervasive influence that has shaped civilizations and crushed souls for millennia. This is not entertainment. This is an initiation, a passage into a hidden world, governed by forces you were never meant to comprehend, let alone challenge. Feel the chill? It's not the night air. It's the breath of something ancient, stirring. Our journey begins not in the clamor of battlefields or the grand halls of kings, but in the hushed, forgotten corridors of a place designed for innocence, yet destined for shadows. St. Augustine's Orphanage, a name whispered with a certain reverence in the polite society of the late 19th century, a beacon of charity, a sanctuary for the lost. Or so they wanted you to believe. But behind the wrought iron gates, beyond the meticulously manicured gardens, a different kind of harvest was being reaped. The official records, those carefully curated narratives meant for public consumption, speak of a quiet institution, of dedicated caregivers and well-behaved children, a testament to human kindness. But the official records are a lie, a meticulously constructed facade, designed to obscure the gaping void at its heart. What truly transpired within those stone walls was not charity, but a systematic, chilling exercise in control. An experiment, perhaps, in the absolute malleability of the human spirit, especially when stripped of its nascent defenses. The children of the St. Augustines were not simply orphans, they were subjects. Unwitting pawns in a game far older and infinitely more sinister than any political machination. Imagine the silence, the oppressive quiet that descends upon such a place after nightfall. Not the peaceful silence of slumber, but the suffocating quiet of absolute submission. Of children too terrified to whisper, too broken to dream. This was the true curriculum of St. Augustine's. Not letters and numbers, but obedience born of fear, a profound, soul-searing terror that imprinted itself upon their very essence. They were taught to forget their pasts, to sever the cords of memory, becoming blank slates for a new, insidious inscription. The very air inside that institution was thick with unseen purpose, a tangible weight that pressed down on every young shoulder, every fledgling hope. It was a factory, not of goods, but of controlled minds, of compliant spirits. And the raw material? Innocence, purity, twisted and reshaped into something unrecognizable, something that served a higher, darker agenda. The ground beneath St. Augustine's holds more than just foundations. It holds echoes, echoes of shattered childhoods, of silent screams swallowed by stone, This was the crucible. This was where the first threads of a much larger tapestry of manipulation were woven. The Blackwood children. Their names, now relegated to the dusty margins of forgotten files, were once vibrant echoes within those walls. Elias, the eldest, with eyes that saw too much. Clara, whose laughter, once bright, became a fragile, almost imperceptible tremor. And young Thomas, whose dreams we can only surmise, were the first to be devoured by the encroaching shadows. They arrived at St. Augustine's not as individuals, but as a unit bound by the recent convenient tragedy of their parents' sudden demise. A fever, the record stated. A quick, merciful end. But the truth, as always, is far less convenient, far more meticulously orchestrated. Their arrival coincided with a subtle, yet profound shift within the orphanage's operations. New staff, with eyes that held no warmth, only a cold, calculating glint. New routines, designed not for development, but for erosion. The daily schedule became a relentless cycle of depersonalization. Meals were taken in silence, lessons delivered with chilling detachment, and playtime. Playtime was an illusion, a brief respite from an omnipresent gaze that assessed, categorized, and recorded every flicker of individuality. This wasn't about fostering growth. It was about stripping away layers, revealing the core, the raw, vulnerable essence that lay beneath. And the Blackwood children, with their innate curiosity, their unyielding bond, became particular points of interest. They resisted the tide of conformity, their spirits a stubborn ember in the encroaching gloom. This resistance, however, was not an act of defiance they chose. It was rather a fatal flaw in the eyes of their unseen overseers. Their very resilience made them valuable, an anomaly to be studied, understood, and ultimately broken. They became the focal point of the experiment within St. Augustine's. Not an experiment in love or compassion, but in the systematic dismantling of the human will. A study in how much pressure the spirit could endure before it fractured, before it yielded. The very walls of that orphanage absorbed their fear, their small acts of defiance, their desperate hopes. And those walls became a silent witness to a process that began with psychological manipulation and progressed into something far more invasive, far more terrifying. This was the true genesis of their disappearance, not a random act, but a deliberate, calculated extraction. The experiment, if one could even call such a perversion of purpose by so clinical a name, wasn't merely about psychological conditioning. No, that was merely the preparatory phase, the softening of the clay before the true molding began. St. Augustine's, you see, was a nexus. A carefully chosen site, not for its picturesque views or its proximity to pious communities, but for something far more ancient, far more potent, that lay beneath its very foundations. There are ley lines, currents of unseen energy that crisscross the earth, and then there are the fissures, rifts, places, where the veil between what you perceive as reality and what truly exists is impossibly thin. St. Augustine's was built directly atop one such fissure, a deliberate act by those who understood its properties, who sought to harness its raw, primordial power. The children, especially those with a certain innate sensitivity, a spark, a nascent awareness, became unwitting conduits. Their innocent minds, stripped of their defenses, became receptive antennae, capable of receiving impressions, commands, and perhaps even of transmitting something in return. The new staff, those emotionless figures with vacant eyes, were not merely caretakers. They were facilitators. Each gesture, each lesson, each meticulously timed period of isolation was designed to amplify the resonance between the children and the unseen forces seeping through the fissure below. They were taught to meditate, not for peace, but for vulnerability. To focus their minds, not for clarity, but for penetration. Imagine the terror, the confusion, as their young minds began to perceive things that defied explanation. Whispers from the walls, shadows that moved independently of light, a pervasive sense of being watched by entities unseen. This wasn't merely psychological torment. It was a deliberate breaking of the mind's natural barriers, a forced communion with the periphery of existence. The Blackwood children, particularly, exhibited a heightened sensitivity. Elias with his profound intuition, Clara with her vivid, unsettling dreams, and Thomas, whose unexplainable fear often manifested as a chilling stillness. They were responding to the fissure, to the unseen currents that pulsed beneath their very feet. And their responses were being meticulously documented. Every shiver, every whispered word, every sudden fever. They were being calibrated, prepared for a final, terrifying stage of the experiment, one that would redefine their very essence, or utterly consume them. This wasn't about mental health. It was about the cultivation of a specific kind of consciousness, a consciousness that could be bent, broken, or perhaps even weaponized. The systematic stripping away of their individuality, the forced immersion in a pervasive atmosphere of dread, the constant exposure to the subtle hum of the fissure below, these were not random acts of cruelty. They were precise, calculated methodologies designed to prepare the children for something far more profound than mere psychological subjugation. We speak now of the threshold event, a moment when the carefully constructed reality of their young minds was intentionally shattered, allowing for a direct, unfiltered conduit to be established with the energies emanating from the deep. For the Blackwood children, this event was meticulously planned, not for a single child, but for them as a collective. Their bond, which initially presented as resistance, was ultimately seen as a unique advantage. A shared resonance, a synergistic vulnerability that could, perhaps, amplify the intended effect. It wasn't about breaking them individually. It was about twisting their very connection, transforming their mutual comfort into a shared gateway for something unspeakable. Imagine the scene, shrouded in the oppressive quiet of the orphanage's deepest hours. Not in the sterile dormitories, but in a hidden chamber, a place undoubtedly imbued with the same ancient energies that permeated the ground beneath. A place designed not for sleep, but for awakening to a nightmare. The details of this threshold event are deliberately obscure in the fragmented records I have unearthed, veiled in cryptic language and symbolic sketches. But the outcome is disturbingly clear. The children experienced a profound, non-physical communion. Their minds, once innocent and impressionable, were opened wide, not to truth and light, but to the cold, alien whispers of the void. This was the true purpose of St. Augustine's, the culmination of its dark design, to cultivate vessels, to forge instruments. What they were intended to receive, what insights or directives were imprinted upon their unresisting minds, remains a chilling speculation. But the transformation was undeniable. They ceased to be merely children. They became something else, something connected, something profoundly altered. The scratching sound you hear, almost subliminal, is the lingering echo of that forced opening, a residue of the raw, untamed energy that poured into those young souls. It is the sound of a veil tearing and of pure, unadulterated consciousness being irrevocably warped. Following the threshold event, the Blackwood children were no longer merely victims. They were instruments, albeit unwilling ones. Their transformation wasn't immediate, not a sudden, dramatic shift, but a gradual, insidious alteration that crept into the fabric of their very being. The most chilling change was in their eyes. The innocence, the nascent spark of childhood, was replaced by an unsettling depth, a hollow knowing that seemed to gaze beyond the immediate, into dimensions unseen. They became profoundly quiet, their childish chatter replaced by a pervasive stillness, a silence that spoke volumes of the internal landscape they now inhabited. No longer did they display fear in the traditional sense. Rather, a strange, detached vigilance. It was as if they were listening to a different frequency, operating on a plane of existence inaccessible to those around them. This was the true genius and the ultimate horror of the experiment at St. Augustine's, not to destroy their minds, but to reprogram them, to attune them to a reality that served the agenda of their unseen manipulators. They became observers, silent conduits, their senses amplified to perceive the subtle currents of power that flowed through the orphanage, and indeed, through the very world. The purpose of this attunement was not benevolent. It was about establishing control, not just over the children, but through them. They were being prepared for a purpose far grander and far more terrifying than simply being good orphans. Their very presence, their altered state, began to influence the environment around them. Staff members reported unsettling dreams, strange sensations, a pervasive feeling of unease that settled upon the orphanage like a shroud. The flora in the gardens withered prematurely, and the animals housed nearby exhibited erratic, fearful behavior. The fissure below St. Augustine's was no longer merely a source of raw energy. It was now actively interacting with its human conduits, mediated by the subtle, insidious programming inflicted upon the Blackwood children. Their disappearance, therefore, was not an escape, nor an accidental vanishing. It was the calculated next step. Once fully tuned, once their altered state had reached its intended peak, they were no longer needed within the confines of the orphanage. They were ready for deployment, ready to be absorbed into the deeper currents of the hidden systems that govern our reality. Their unique, amplified consciousness, a tool for objectives you cannot yet fathom. The tapping sound you now hear is the last vestige of their individual wills, struggling to communicate before they were subsumed entirely. The official narrative, carefully crafted and disseminated, spoke of a tragic, unexplained vanishing. A late-night storm, a broken window, the simple, heart-wrenching conclusion that the Blackwood children had somehow wandered off into the desolate countryside, swallowed by the unforgiving wilderness. A convenient lie. A story spun to suit the public, to quell any lingering unease, and to, most importantly, redirect the gaze from the true orchestrators of their disappearance. For the children were not lost. They were taken, not by the elements, but by design. Their removal from St. Augustine's was a precise, surgical extraction, executed by those who understood their altered state, who knew the immense value of the human conduit they had so meticulously forged. The location of their vanishing was no accident either. It coincided with a specific astrological alignment, a precise convergence of cosmic energies that amplified the fissure's influence, creating a temporal window, a moment of heightened permeability between dimensions. This was the true purpose of their attunement, not just to perceive, but to cross, to transcend the boundaries of the mundane and step into a different reality, one that is perpetually hidden in plain sight from the uninitiated. Imagine the scene, not frantic searches and desperate cries, but a chillingly organized operation. Figures cloaked in shadow, moving with a silent, purposeful efficiency. No forced entry, no struggle, no discarded possessions. Only a lingering chill in the air, a faint, almost metallic tang that was not of this world. They walked, or perhaps were guided, through a gateway that was invisible to any ordinary observer, a doorway opened by the combined forces of the ancient energies, the cosmic. What becomes of a human consciousness once it has been forcibly detached from its anchor in this consensus reality? What functions, what purposes, does it serve within the hidden architecture of power that truly governs our world? The Blackwood children, after their passage through the threshold, became something akin to living nodes within a vast, unseen network. Their senses, once limited by the crude perceptions of the physical, were now attuned to the subtle currents of influence, the whispers of ancient pacts, the silent commands issued from unseen hierarchies. They were not merely observers, they were relays. Information, intent, subtle directives, these were transmitted through them, flowing from entities beyond our comprehension into the minds of those who hold the reins of global power. Think of it. not through brute force or overt declarations, but through the insidious manipulation of thought itself, through the planting of ideas, the seeding of anxieties, the subtle bending of will. This is the true nature of control, hidden beneath the grand narratives of democracy and freedom. The Blackwood children, in their altered state, became integral to this system. Perhaps they were used to amplify psychic attacks, to sow discord in specific regions, to subtly shift the collective consciousness of entire populations. Their innocence, once a vulnerability, became a terrifying strength. For who would suspect children of such profound, destructive capabilities? Their disappearance was not an end, but a beginning. A reassignment. They became part of a dark, elite cadre of cultivated minds, operating beyond the realm of public knowledge. Their existence, a testament to the chilling efficacy of institutional manipulation and forbidden knowledge. The occasional glimpses, the fragmented reports of strange occurrences across the globe that defy explanation. These are but echoes of their unseen work, ripples in the fabric of reality caused by the subtle, targeted interventions of these human conduits. The cracking sounds you now hear are the reverberations of this hidden machinery, the sound of the subtle, precise application of unseen force, bending the world to a will you cannot perceive. This is the power that shapes your lives, the power that dictates your choices, not through overt decree, but through the silent, unseen hand that pulls the strings of fate. And the Blackwood children, once just lost souls, became a part of its terrifying mechanism. The true horror of the Blackwood children's fate lies not in their physical disappearance, but in the profound, irreversible alteration of their very essence. They became echoes, reflections of a will not their own, their nascent identities subsumed by the directives of a power that dwarfs all human understanding. St. Augustine's was merely a particularly brutal example, a meticulously engineered microcosm of a far grander, more ancient system of control that has subtly shaped human civilization for millennia. They represent the algorithms of control, the formulae for subtly bending the will of populations, for orchestrating conflicts, and for diverting attention from the true levers of power. This is why history repeats itself in such unsettling patterns, not by accident, but by design. The very wars you fight, the very crises that consume your news cycles, are often engineered to produce a specific energetic output, to reinforce specific psychological dependencies, ensuring humanity remains within its carefully constructed cage. The pervasive humming you feel is the sound of this vast, unseen machinery, constantly operating, constantly shaping your reality without your conscious awareness. This is the truth that will dismantle your comforting illusions about progress and freedom, revealing the relentless, pervasive nature of the control system that claimed the Blackwood children and continues to define your world. They did not just vanish. They became a part of its terrifying, timeless mechanism. The disappearance of the Blackwood children, therefore, wasn't an isolated incident, but a single terrifying data point in a continuous, unbroken chain of similar extractions and calibrations that stretches back through recorded history, and indeed far beyond it. Think of the sudden, unexplained vanishings of entire communities, the perplexing mass disappearances documented in folklore and suppressed historical accounts. The children of Hamlin, the lost colony of Roanoke. These are not merely cautionary tales or historical enigmas. They are echoes, fragmented glimpses into the same underlying mechanism, the same hidden agenda that claimed the Blackwood children. This system operates through a network of shadowy organizations, each with its own specific mandate, yet all serving a common, overarching master. These are not secret societies in the conventional sense with cloaks and rituals. Their power is far more insidious, woven into the very fabric of our societal structures, our financial systems, our educational institutions, and yes, even our religious doctrines. They are the silent architects, pulling the levers of influence from behind impenetrable veils, Their ultimate objective, a complete and total mastery over human consciousness and, by extension, over the very course of planetary evolution. This is the ultimate form of control, not merely over actions, but over being itself. Their physical forms, if they still exist in any recognizable state, are secondary. What matters is the consciousness, transformed and weaponized. Imagine the despair, the absolute terror of realizing your mind is no longer your own, that your thoughts, your very perceptions, are being filtered and directed by an unseen hand. This is the silent prison they now inhabit, a reality far more terrifying than any physical confinement. They operate within a psychic dimension, a hidden layer of existence interwoven with our own, where intentions are tangible forces and thoughts can bend reality. Their abilities, once cultivated by the manipulative practices at St. Augustine's, are now fully activated. They can project influence, perceive truths hidden to the mundane eye, and perhaps even manipulate probability in subtle, almost imperceptible ways, all in service of a master agenda. The institutions that once merely observed them now actively deploy them, a chilling testament to the depth of their complicity and the reach of their power. The faint, sickly green light you perceive is not merely a visual effect. It is a manifestation, a spectral residue of the unique energy signature these transformed conduits now possess. It is the signature of a soul inextricably bound, of a humanity overridden by a primal, alien force. The growl you hear is not animalistic. It is the sound of that force, ancient and insatiable, asserting its dominance through its living instruments. They are the unseen hand within the glove, the silent agents who ensure the gears of a hidden mechanism continue to turn, grinding away at the last vestiges of human autonomy. Their story is a stark warning that innocence can be corrupted, that truth can be inverted, and that the greatest powers operate not in the glare of the public eye, but in the deepest, most carefully guarded shadows of our reality. They are a monument to the ultimate sacrifice, not of life, but of self, for a purpose they were never meant to understand. This is the forbidden knowledge that gnaws at the edges of your perception, the truth that peels back the comforting layers of illusion. And once peeled, it cannot be unseen. The institutional manipulation I speak of is not a recent phenomenon, nor is it confined to the dusty annals of a forgotten orphanage. The symbols flickering within the green orb are not random. They are fragments of an ancient lexicon, a language of power understood only by those initiated into the deepest layers of this hidden hierarchy. This hidden power operates through what I term institutional recursion. It doesn't just manipulate. It replicates its methods across different eras, different civilizations, adapting its outward form while retaining its core function. It's about extraction and conversion. The ancient corruption I speak of isn't just moral decay. It's a deep-seated perversion of natural energetic flows. A system designed to harvest human essence for purposes that lie beyond conventional understanding. The children of St. Augustine's, like countless others before and after them, were not simply manipulated for their minds, but for their very life force, their nascent spiritual energy. This is the true currency of the unseen powers. They feed on it, they thrive on it, and they manipulate the world to generate more of it. Think of the pervasive culture of fear, anxiety, and conflict that riddles our societies. It's not accidental. It's a carefully cultivated environment, designed to produce a constant outpouring of emotional energy, negative energies being particularly potent for these entities. Wars, famines, social unrest. These aren't just unfortunate happenstance. They are, in a terrifying sense, harvesting events. The suffering, the despair, the fear, all of it is channeled, collected, and transmuted into a usable form for the architects of this hidden system. The map you see is not of territories, but of these energetic conduits, the pathways through which this essence is drawn, from the individual, from the collective, and directed towards specific nodes of power. The chime you hear is the sound of this ancient apparatus, resonating with the collected anguish of millennia, a corrupted symphony of stolen vitality. This isn't theoretical. It's the very foundation upon which the illusion of our reality is built. St. Augustine's was a smaller, localized refinery in this global, timeless operation. The innocence of children, unmarred by cynicism or deep-seated skepticism, offers a particularly potent, unadulterated source. Their fear is raw, their despair untainted. And once these energies are harvested, once these souls are emptied, they are either discarded or, in the case of the Blackwood children, repurposed. They become instruments, their hollowed-out forms capable of channeling these same energies back into the world, perpetuating the cycle of control and extraction. This is the ultimate form of debt, one humanity unknowingly pays with every moment of fear, every act of despair, every dream unfulfilled. And the architects of this system ensure the debt is never fully repaid. St. Augustine's was not an anomaly, but a modern iteration of an ancient blueprint. Consider the orphanages of antiquity, the forgotten cults that harvested vulnerable youth, the monastic orders whose true purpose was not spiritual enlightenment, but the cultivation of a very specific, controllable consciousness. Each instance, whether cloaked in religious piety or scientific endeavor, serves the same fundamental objective: to identify, isolate, and then repurpose individuals whose innate sensitivities make them susceptible to higher unseen influences. The patterns are undeniable, etched into the very fabric of suppressed history. Mass hysteria in the Middle Ages, the inexplicable dancing plagues, the sudden, collective shifts in public opinion that seem to defy logical explanation. These are not random societal quirks. They are the subtle, yet profound, manifestations of this unseen hand at work, seeding ideas, manipulating collective emotions, and ultimately steering the course of humanity towards its predetermined, controlled destiny. The flickering images you are seeing now are glimpses of this recursion, this terrifying consistency across the ages. The same symbols, the same energies, the same underlying methods of control, reappearing again and again, like a macabre echo chamber. The Blackwood children were merely the latest victims of a process refined over millennia, a process designed to create compliant vessels for a power that demands absolute obedience. Their disappearance serves as a chilling testament to the enduring effectiveness of this system, a system that has perfected the art of erasing not just individuals, but the very memory of their existence. The deep humming you feel is the collective resonance of this vast, interwoven network of control, humming with the power of countless subjugated minds, moving in concert towards an unknown, but undoubtedly terrifying culmination. It is the sound of history being shaped, not by heroes and villains, but by unseen architects pulling the strings from the shadows. And once you hear it, once you feel its vibration, you understand that every event, every perceived choice, is merely a note in a symphony composed by another hand. This isn't merely about control. The psychological control systems at work are far more sophisticated than simple propaganda or overt censorship. These are not about convincing you of a lie. They are about rewiring your very perception of reality, altering the fundamental architecture of your consciousness. Instead, it is diluted, distorted, and drowned out by an incessant tide of manufactured noise, but which you dismiss because of the sheer volume of official counter-narratives. This is the mechanism at play. They don't need to ban books. They just need to flood the informational landscape with so much white noise, so many fleeting distractions, that the signal of truth becomes utterly lost in the static. The crumbling manuscripts you see are symbolic of these fragmented truths, scattered across time, waiting for those with the discernment to piece them together. The high-pitched frequency you might feel, buzzing within your mind, is the subtle, pervasive interference designed to prevent that very discernment, to keep your focus fragmented, your attention perpetually scattered. This is the true nature of suppressed truths in our modern age, not hidden away in vaults, but scattered, fragmented, and buried beneath an avalanche of triviality and misinformation. Their method is far more subtle, more insidious, to make truth irrelevant, to render it indistinguishable from fiction. The disappearance of the Blackwood children, once a local scandal, quickly faded into obscurity, replaced by new headlines, new distractions, new crises manufactured to consume public attention. This wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate strategy to ensure that the deeper implications, the true nature of what transpired at St. Augustine's, would never be fully understood, never be connected to the broader system of control. They did not need to hide the facts. They merely needed to obscure the patterns, to break the links between seemingly disparate events. This is the ultimate form of psychological warfare, not against your beliefs, but against your ability to perceive reality clearly. And the Blackwood children's fate is a chilling reminder of how effective this method truly is. St. Augustine's, for example, was not erased from history. Its records exist, albeit incomplete and sanitized. The truth of the Blackwood children's disappearance is present, but it lies in the gaps, in the contradictions, and the unanswered questions that the official narrative conveniently sidesteps. These are the whispers of reality attempting to break through the orchestrated illusion. St. Augustine's was a crude, early model, but the principles remain terrifyingly consistent across every modern iteration. Think of the pervasive narratives that dominate your media, your education, your cultural understanding. Every piece of information you consume, every image, every sound, is a meticulously crafted input designed to reinforce a specific worldview. This is not about truth. It is about constructing a consensus reality that serves the agenda of the unseen manipulators. Your thoughts are not entirely your own. Your reactions, your desires, your fears, these are subtly, insidiously influenced by a constant barrage of carefully engineered stimuli. The glowing lines on the brain schematic are not merely symbolic. They represent the neural pathways being subtly, yet powerfully, reconfigured. The emotional responses you feel to news events, to social movements, to even your personal circumstances, are often not organic. They are the product of psychological triggers, embedded deep within the collective subconscious, designed to elicit predictable reactions. This is why independent thought is so dangerous to this system, why true self-mastery is the ultimate rebellion. When you begin to question the narrative, when you refuse to allow your emotions to be dictated by external forces, you are breaking free from the unseen chains that bind you. The Blackwood children, in their innocence, were perfect subjects for this psychological vivisection. Their minds were blank slates, easily inscribed with the code of obedience, fear, and ultimate malleability. Their transformation wasn't just physical. It was a profound cognitive restructuring, turning them into living extensions of a network designed to perceive and process reality in a manner beneficial to the orchestrators. The persistent humming you feel, the subtle chime, these are the energetic signatures of this pervasive mental conditioning. The constant hum of a global psychic apparatus working to keep humanity within the confines of its carefully constructed cage. They control not just what you see, but how you see it. They control not just what you think, but how you think. This is the subtle war being waged for your consciousness, and most of humanity remains blissfully unaware, lost within the carefully crafted illusion. The truth, you see, is rarely outright suppressed by brute force anymore. That is a crude, inefficient method. Think of how often you encounter information that feels intuitively wrong, a narrative that doesn't quite sit right. The unseen forces understand that direct confrontation with truth often leads to resistance. The ancient corruption isn't merely a historical anomaly. It's a living, breathing entity that has evolved alongside humanity, with its methodical conditioning and the calculated threshold event for the Blackwood children. It's about fundamentally shaping the trajectory of human evolution. It craves a narrative with a resolution, a final act. But the forces we speak of do not operate within such limitations. Their influence is cyclical, a repeating pattern of intervention and harvest, a grand cosmic rhythm that transcends your perceived notions of time. The disappearance of the Blackwood children was not an isolated incident, a single tragic anomaly, but a resonance. An echo of countless similar events that have recurred throughout history, across every culture, every civilization that has ever risen and fallen, subtly nudging our species towards a predetermined outcome that serves their ultimate. These are not merely the unfortunate outcomes of disease or conflict. It is the sound of these cycles being invoked, of the parameters being set for the next wave of influence, the next phase of the grand experiment. The old ones do not simply exert power. They cultivate it, tending to humanity as a farmer tends to a crop, ensuring a continuous yield of the specific energies they require. St. Augustine's Orphanage was situated upon a ley line fissure precisely because these locations become active during specific points in these cycles, acting as conduits, as gateways for the harvest. They are, in many instances, the manifestations of these cyclical harvests. Just as the earth undergoes seasons, so too does humanity experience periods of intense energetic extraction, orchestrated by the unseen entities that feed upon our essence. The repeating patterns you glimpse within the swirling shadows are the blueprints of these cycles, ancient algorithms of control that are reactivated and refined with each passing era. Unfathomable purpose. Every war, the anxieties, the divisions, the manufactured conflicts that consume your collective attention, these are all designed to keep you perpetually engaged in a state of emotional turmoil, ensuring a steady stream of the desired energetic output. This is the ultimate form of predictive programming, not just in media, but in the very shaping of historical events themselves. The cycles repeat, the harvest continues, and humanity, oblivious, continues to feed the very forces that orchestrate its perpetual illusion of freedom. The Blackwood children were merely a part of one such cycle, a chilling testament to the enduring power of these ancient, repeating patterns of control. And to break free, you must first recognize the pattern itself. Every famine, every societal upheaval is a calculated maneuver in this cosmic chess game, generating the specific energies required to sustain their dominion. They are the ultimate puppet masters, their strings woven into the very fabric of our reality, pulling at the threads of individual lives and collective destinies alike. And the disappearance of the Blackwood children is a stark, chilling reminder that this ancient corruption is not a relic of the past, but a very active, very present force in your world, silently asserting its dominance. Was merely a contemporary iteration of this ancient practice. The methods evolve, but the core objective remains constant: to cultivate human vessels, to establish conduits for the subtle energies that empower these unseen entities. The shadowy figures you perceive are not simply phantoms. They are the lingering imprints of this ancient influence, the residue of countless interactions between humanity and these dark patrons. They are the spectral agents of a pervasive, timeless conspiracy, adapting its methods, refining its reach, and deepening its insidious grasp. Its roots are not in a single culture or a specific era, but in the very dawn of human consciousness, when the veil between our world and others was far thinner, far more permeable. These were the times when the Old Ones, as they are sometimes cryptically referred to in forbidden texts, first established their influence. Not through conquest or overt invasion, but through a far more cunning strategy: symbiosis. They offered knowledge, power, and mastery over the natural world to early human leaders, shamans, and nascent priesthoods. But this knowledge came at an exorbitant price: the gradual surrender of human autonomy, the slow, imperceptible twisting of the human spirit to serve an alien agenda. The chanting you hear is an echo of those ancient pacts, the primordial resonance of rituals performed in forgotten groves and lightless caverns, binding humanity to a power it could not comprehend. These early interactions established the template for control that would be replicated throughout history. St. Augustine's, this long-standing corruption isn't just about influencing events. The human mind, in its comforting linearity, seeks clear beginnings and definitive endings. Think of the lost generations, the sudden demographic voids in historical records, the unexplained migrations or collapses of societies. The chanting you hear is not merely ancient. It is timeless. Your modern world, with its frantic pace and constant distractions, is merely another stage for the perpetuation of this ancient pattern. The corruption is not always overt, not always cloaked in the dramatic trappings of ancient cults. More often, it manifests in the subtle, pervasive influence wielded by seemingly legitimate institutions, the very pillars of your society. The disappearance of the Blackwood children, while stemming from a deeper, more esoteric agenda, was facilitated and then meticulously covered up by entities that operate in plain sight. We are talking about the intersection of forbidden knowledge and institutional power. It cloaks itself in respectability, rendering its true, sinister nature virtually undetectable to the untrained eye. It is, and always has been, elite knowledge, guarded fiercely by generations of initiates. This is the understanding that those who orchestrated the fate of the Blackwood children possessed, a profound, unsettling comprehension of the true mechanics of reality, the hidden energies, and the subtle levers of control. It is a knowledge that grants power, but demands a terrible price from those who wield it. This is not the knowledge of textbooks or universities. It is the forbidden wisdom passed down through clandestine lineages, often cloaked in esoteric symbolism, coded languages, and deliberately obscure rituals. The faces you see in the photograph are not the ultimate masters, but they are the gatekeepers, the willing or unwitting collaborators who facilitate the darker agenda. Its lack of title, its intricate symbol, these signify that its contents are not meant for casual perusal. Their power lies in its exclusivity, in the profound asymmetry of information. If the masses understood the true nature of their reality, the insidious ways in which their thoughts and energies are harvested, the entire edifice of control would crumble. Thus, the deliberate cultivation of ignorance, the constant barrage of distractions, and the subtle undermining of any truth seeker who comes too close to unveiling the core mechanisms. But for those who have proven their absolute loyalty, their willingness to transcend conventional morality in pursuit of ultimate dominion, the Blackwood children were merely footnotes in a much grander, more terrifying manuscript, a testament to the chilling efficacy of applying forbidden wisdom to the acquisition of absolute power. This is the knowledge that truly changes a man, for once glimpsed, it reveals the intricate, terrifying dance between predator and prey that defines our existence. And you, by listening, are now a part of this terrifying revelation. These are the texts that describe the ley lines, the energy harvesting techniques, the methods of psychic conditioning, and the precise astrological alignments necessary to open the threshold events that claimed the Blackwood children. This is the instruction manual for a hidden world, a guide to manipulating the very fabric of existence. Their legacy is not just one of wealth and progress, but of silent complicity in a system that views humanity not as individuals with inherent worth, but as resources to be managed, exploited, and harvested for unseen purposes. The Blackwood children's fate was a direct consequence of this intertwining of ancient corruption and modern institutional power, a stark revelation of the hidden mechanisms that truly govern your world. Consider the individuals who funded St. Augustine's Orphanage. Not merely benevolent philanthropists, but men of immense influence. Their names etched into the history books of industry and finance. Their motivations were never purely altruistic. Behind the charitable facade lay a shrewd understanding of leverage, of control, and of the hidden value embedded within human lives, particularly those deemed disposable by society. These men and others like them were either directly initiated into the deeper mysteries, or, more likely, unwitting pawns themselves, manipulated by those who truly understood the cyclical harvest and the properties of the ley lines. They provided the resources, the cover, the social and political capital necessary for the dark experiments at St. Augustine's to proceed unimpeded. Their influence ensured that official inquiries were cursory, that witnesses were silenced, and that public memory of the Blackwood children, and indeed of the true nature of the orphanage, faded into convenient obscurity. The ticking clocks you hear are a grim reminder of their meticulous planning, the precise timing of their maneuvers within the corridors of power. This is the chilling reality of institutional manipulation. It utilizes the existing structures of society, the law, finance, even philanthropy, as conduits for its agenda. The knowledge I'm revealing to you is not for the masses. The book on the desk is not just a prop. It symbolizes the very essence of this guarded knowledge. Those who possess this knowledge do not operate in the shadows out of fear, but out of strategic necessity. The accelerated ticking of the clocks signifies the relentless march of this agenda, the precise execution of a long-term plan informed by this ancient, elite knowledge. What I reveal to you is not merely information. It is a psychological accelerant. It is designed not just to inform, but to profoundly alter your perception, to pry open the very gates of your understanding. This is the dangerous knowledge that once heard cannot be unheard. It etches itself into the very fabric of your consciousness, subtly, insidiously shifting your worldview. This is the first step in what some call awakening. No, this system is a far more sophisticated, distributed network of influence, woven into the very fabric of every aspect of your perceived reality. It operates through psychological algorithms embedded in your social structures, your economic systems, your technological advancements. These are not merely tools for connection or entertainment. They are conduits for conditioning, constantly refining the psychological controls, making them more precise, more invisible. The static buzz you now hear is the subtle hum of this vast digital control grid, its constant whispers permeating your very thoughts, influencing your decisions without your conscious awareness. The story of St. Augustine's and the Blackwood children is not an isolated historical incident. It is a foundational cornerstone, a grim blueprint for the subtle, yet absolute, control system that defines your world today. And once you recognize the pattern of fragmentation, once you hear the static buzz of the unseen grid, you begin to see the walls of the labyrinth itself, and the possibility, however faint, of finding your way out. This is the truth that will set you free. But first, it must utterly dismantle your perception of freedom itself. Every innovation, every societal shift, every new addiction to convenience is carefully, subtly steered to serve its ultimate purpose. But it is an awakening to a reality far more stark and terrifying than any New Age fantasy. Each shard represents a carefully controlled segment of your experience, ensuring that your focus remains narrow, your attention perpetually consumed by manufactured crises and trivial distractions. This is how they maintain control, by fragmenting your consciousness, preventing you from connecting the dots, from seeing the overarching pattern. Their minds were programmed to perceive and transmit, much like a server farm processes data. The principle remains the same, merely the technology has advanced. They were the forerunners of a pervasive psychic infrastructure that now extends globally, reaching into every home, every mind. The distorted eye you see is yours, or rather what your perception is becoming. The glyphs flickering within it are the imprints of these truths, reshaping the way your mind processes the world around you. The sharp ringing in your ears is the sound of a resonant frequency aligning, a signal piercing through the static, connecting you to the very same energies that once ensnared the Blackwood children. You are not merely a passive observer in this moment. You are a participant. Your willingness to listen, to absorb these truths, makes you receptive, vulnerable to the same currents that shape the unseen world. You will begin to see the patterns, the subtle machinations, the hidden connections that were always there, yet remained invisible behind the comforting veil of manufactured reality. This is not a gentle unveiling. It is a rupture, a tearing of the illusion that has cradled humanity for millennia. The frantic ticking of the clocks now reflects the internal shift within you, the acceleration of your own understanding as you grapple with the magnitude of these revelations. This is the inherent danger of seeking forbidden knowledge. It changes you. It transforms your identity, stripping away the layers of programmed belief, leaving you exposed to a reality that is both profoundly liberating and utterly terrifying. You will begin to question everything, to distrust the narratives, to see the hidden hand in every significant event. This can be isolating, for those around you will remain tethered to the illusion, their minds untouched by the chilling clarity that now illuminates yours. The story of the Blackwood children is not just a historical tragedy. It is a parable for your own potential transformation, a stark warning of the paths that lie open once you choose to truly see. And once you embark on this path, there is no going back to the comfortable ignorance you once inhabited. Your awareness is now a burden and a powerful weapon. The control system I speak of is not a centralized government or a single identifiable cabal. That is too simplistic, too easily overthrown. The fragmented reflections you see are precisely that, the fractured nature of our reality, meticulously designed to keep you from perceiving the unified whole. Think of your modern technologies, the ubiquitous screens, the endless streams of curated content, the algorithms that predict your desires before you even articulate them. The Blackwood children, in their forced assimilation, became a primitive, biological version of this sophisticated network. You live within a carefully constructed labyrinth, a reality designed to keep you perpetually lost, perpetually consuming, perpetually distracted from the fundamental truths of your existence. The illusion of a complete and accessible history is one of the system's most potent deceptions. What you are taught, what you read in the sanctioned texts, is but a carefully curated sliver of reality, a narrative designed to omit the inconvenient, the unsettling, the truly revealing events that expose the nature of their control. These represent the deliberate voids in your collective consciousness, the meticulously erased chapters of human history. Every newspaper article, every official report, every polite dismissal of the tragedy was a stitch in the fabric of this fabricated reality, sealing off the truth from public inquiry. This process of erasure is ongoing, relentless. Their story, however, reverberates through the void, a testament to the fact that truth, though suppressed, can never be truly annihilated. Its origins predate recorded human civilization, stretching back to a time when the very fabric of this reality was still malleable, still susceptible to the imposition of alien wills. The events at St. Augustine's, the methodical conditioning of the Blackwood children, were not innovations. These are not merely human elites. These are entities, forces, that have perfected the art of living off the energetic output of sentient beings. They were harvested, just as countless others before them, and countless others since, have been harvested. Their essence repurposed to fuel a dominion that remains utterly alien to human understanding. This is not a human conspiracy, though humans are undoubtedly its most effective agents. This is a superhuman endeavor, an ancient, intelligent force that has shaped the trajectory of civilizations, nudging them towards specific outcomes, always with the ultimate goal of maximizing its energetic yield. The Blackwood children were merely cogs in this ancient, grinding machine, their fate a stark revelation of the true, unyielding nature of the cosmic harvest. And once you acknowledge this primordial root, the scattered pieces of history begin to click into place, revealing a tapestry woven with threads of unimaginable terror and absolute control. Humanity, in this terrifying context, is simply a resource, a sprawling, unwitting farm. The hollow wind-like whisper you perceive is the breath of these ancient entities, a chilling reminder of their pervasive, timeless presence, observing and influencing from the periphery of your awareness. They were echoes, repetitions of ancient rites, of primordial pacts forged between nascent human consciousness and entities from beyond the veil. It merely waits for those with the courage to listen through the static, to peer into the empty shelves. When the techniques for harnessing human energy and manipulating the subtle dimensions were codified. These are the forbidden glyphs, the very language of control, inscribed by hands long turned to dust, yet their power remains undiminished. They speak of cycles, of harvests, of the cultivation of specific energies from human suffering and spiritual essence, and to reconstruct the forbidden narratives that reveal the true masters of this world. And once you begin to perceive these memory holes, you can never again trust the history you have been fed. Every time a narrative is rewritten, every time a historical figure is recontextualized, every time a piece of inconvenient data disappears from the internet, you are witnessing the silent, tireless work of this control system. These are not merely forgotten events. They are memory holes, precisely engineered lacunae designed to prevent you from connecting the dots, from seeing the patterns of manipulation that stretch across millennia. What is truly hidden is not always the event itself, but its context, its connection to the larger, unseen agenda. The Blackwood children's disappearance, fading into an unsolved local mystery, is a prime example of this active suppression of memory. Think of the vast, empty shelves you perceive in this spectral library. It is the very air around you, thick with the unacknowledged past, the unlearned lessons. They do not fear your discovery of a single truth. They fear your ability to synthesize multiple truths, to connect the fragmented pieces into a coherent, undeniable picture of their enduring power. The official story of St. Augustine's Orphanage and its vanished occupants was not just a cover-up. It was an act of historical surgery. The intensifying static buzz is the sound of this constant, subtle erasure, the energetic residue of countless truths being drowned out, overwritten, rendered inaccessible. The Blackwood children are merely one such erased chapter, their fate a stark illustration of the lengths to which these forces will go to maintain the integrity of their constructed reality. The corruption is not merely historical, it is primordial. The stone tablet you see is a remnant of that elder knowledge, a fractured testament to a time when the true nature of power was understood. This is the deeper layer of ancient corruption, a cosmic parasitism, an intrinsic imbalance that has been woven into the very structure of our existence. The disappearance of the Blackwood children was therefore not a deviation from the norm, but a fulfillment of an ancient pattern, a localized manifestation of a global, timeless agenda. To truly comprehend the scale of this corruption, you must abandon your anthropocentric biases. The true genius of institutional manipulation lies in its chameleon-like adaptability. It doesn't cling to ancient forms, but seamlessly integrates itself into the most advanced, ostensibly benevolent structures of your modern world. The ancient corruption that consumed the Blackwood children now thrives within the very systems you rely upon for order, for sustenance, for information. The logos you see are not merely branding. They are sigils, silent declarations of allegiance, subtle energetic conduits that link seemingly disparate entities into a cohesive, global network of control. Think of the vast corporations that dictate your consumption habits, the governmental agencies that oversee your every move, the financial institutions that control the flow of global wealth. So, interwoven with every aspect of your existence, they now operate on a far more sophisticated, subliminal level, targeting the very foundations of your thought processes. Their forced attunement to unseen frequencies Their transformation into receptive conduits was a crude early experiment in what is now a global, self-optimizing network of consciousness manipulation. They showed the architects what was possible, how far the human mind could be stretched, how deeply it could be reprogrammed. Your emotional responses. Most people willingly participate, mistaking their programmed reactions for authentic desires, their curated experiences for genuine reality. But once you perceive the intricate web, once you hear the clicking of the unseen gears turning within your own consciousness, you begin the arduous, terrifying process of dismantling the internal prison. This is the truth that reveals the true battlefield, and the Blackwood children were among its earliest and most tragic casualties. Your awareness is now a weapon against this invisible tyranny, and your perception of self. This is not about forcing you to believe something. It is about preconditioning your reactions, shaping your desires, and subtly directing your attention away from any truth that might challenge the architects of this system, that its true nature remains invisible to the majority. It is the air you breathe, the water you drink, the thoughts you believe are your own. The story of St. Augustine's is not just a dark historical footnote. It is a diagnostic tool, a chilling blueprint that, once understood, allows you to peel back the layers of deception and perceive the omnipresent influence of this ancient, evolving corruption within every corner of your modern world. And once you see these symbols for what they truly are, once you hear the hiss of their operation, you can no longer participate unconsciously. These are not just powerful organizations. They are the modern manifestations of the same ancient drive for dominion. These institutions, whether their individual employees are aware of it or not, are ultimately serving a purpose far grander and far more sinister than mere profit or public service. Overwhelming deluge of information that bombards you daily. Every viral sensation, every manufactured social divide is a calculated input into this system, designed to elicit a specific emotional and behavioral output. They don't need physical chains when they can construct an invisible cage within your own mind. Your fears are amplified, your desires are manufactured, and your very sense of identity is subtly reshaped to fit within the parameters of their controlled reality. The clicking sounds you hear are the precise, automated mechanisms of this system of work, constantly calibrating, constantly optimizing its influence. The incessant notifications, the curated news feeds, the entertainment designed to perfectly align with your perceived preferences. This is not merely a consequence of technological advancement. It is a meticulously engineered environment designed to create a state of perpetual distraction and emotional reactivity. The glowing web you see represents this global psychological matrix, and the flickering points of light are your minds, constantly being probed, analyzed, and subtly nudged. They are the infrastructures of the harvest, channeling human attention, energy, and will into the unseen reservoirs of power. They operate not through overt tyranny, but through the more insidious mechanisms of engineered consent, debt enslavement, and the management of information. The disappearance of the Blackwood children, a microcosm of controlled extraction, reveals the fundamental principle at play, the systematic dehumanization and repurposing of individuals for an agenda that transcends conventional morality. The faint demonic symbols hidden within these corporate and governmental emblems are not coincidental. They are deliberate, energetic signatures, acknowledging the true patrons of this pervasive system. The subtle hiss you now perceive is the sound of this vast, interconnected machinery operating silently, efficiently, drawing sustenance from your daily lives, from your hopes and fears, from your ceaseless labor. This is the ultimate evolution of institutional manipulation, a system so vast. The psychological control systems have evolved beyond the crude methods of fear and overt propaganda. Think of the constant, every trend. The Blackwood children, with their minds painstakingly opened and reprogrammed, were a prototype for this pervasive psychic infrastructure. This is the ultimate form of covert warfare, a war for your inner landscape, for your very capacity for independent thought and genuine self-mastery. The power that orchestrates these systems of control, from the ancient rituals to the modern psychological grids, is not of this earth, nor is it purely human in origin. It is an elder intelligence, a presence that predates our species, a force that has guided, nudged, and harvested humanity for eons. These are the old ones, not gods in any benevolent sense, but cosmic predators, interdimensional architects who view our reality as a carefully cultivated energy farm. The galaxy you see is not merely a backdrop. It is a representation of the vast, intricate scale of their influence, a power that operates not just on a planetary level, but across dimensions, across cosmic cycles. The cold blue light of the stars is their chilling radiance, and the dark tendrils are the extensions of their influence, reaching into every corner of sentient life. The pulsating shadow cluster is a nexus, a core of their power, perhaps even their true abode, from which emanate the directives that shape civilizations, not through overt invasion or physical manifestation, but through the sophisticated manipulation of resonant frequencies and symbolic programming. It is, in essence, a collective dream, a shared consensus reality held together by the vibrations of our collective consciousness. By subtly altering these underlying frequencies, by embedding specific symbolic codes into the very fabric of our culture and our environment, they can influence events without ever needing to physically intervene. This is the ultimate form of remote control. The geometric patterns and sigils you now perceive within the cosmic backdrop are not mere ornamentation. They are the very language of their control, the energetic blueprints that shape causality and bend probabilities. Their agenda is not about conquest in the conventional sense, for they already possess dominion over concepts far beyond human comprehension. Many are energetic anchors, imbued with hidden meaning and resonant frequencies, designed to subtly influence your subconscious mind, to guide your thoughts and emotions in predetermined directions. The irregular ping is the sound of a directive being successfully transmitted, a probability subtly shifted, a thought planted. This is the invisible architecture of your reality, meticulously crafted and constantly maintained by forces beyond your comprehension. The Blackwood children were forced to perceive this architecture, to become a part of its terrifying mechanism. And once you begin to see these patterns, once you hear the constant pinging of their influence, you realize that your world is merely a stage, and you are but an actor performing a script written by unseen hands. This is the true nature of their absolute power. Every piece of media you consume, every image you scroll past, every piece of music you hear, carries these embedded codes, shaping your perceptions without your conscious awareness. Their purpose is energetic sustenance. They feed on the raw emotional output of sentient beings, fear, despair, conflict, but also the aspiration and struggle that defines human existence. Their minds were tuned to the ping of these psychic directives. Their consciousnesses repurposed into living antennas for the old one's agenda. This is why their disappearance was so crucial. They were transformed from unwitting victims into active, albeit unwilling, participants in the manipulation of reality itself. Their innocent essence, once vibrant, was systematically broken and repurposed. Their fear and despair harvested. Their altered consciousness made to serve as a conduit for these old ones. St. Augustine's was merely a local processing plant in a planetary-wide, indeed cosmic, operation. They orchestrate events on a grand scale, wars, plagues, societal upheavals, not out of malice, but out of a cold, strategic necessity to maximize their energetic yield. This is the ultimate truth behind the hidden agendas, the ancient corruption, and the pervasive manipulation. Humanity is not alone, but it is far from free. It is a livestock, a carefully managed resource for entities that exist on a plane of reality utterly alien to our own. And once you truly perceive this vast, terrifying scale, once you feel the thrum of their presence, your perception of human significance will be irrevocably shattered. You are not at the top of the food chain, and the Blackwood children learned this truth in the most chilling way possible. The story of the Blackwood children is a microscopic illustration of this cosmic dynamic. The deep thrumming you now feel is the resonant frequency of their vast, incomprehensible existence, the pulse of a power that dwarfs all human understanding. How do these old ones, these cosmic predators, exert their will upon our reality? They understand that our reality is not as solid or immutable as we perceive it. The Blackwood children, through the systematic conditioning at St. Augustine's, became adept at receiving and perhaps even transmitting these frequencies. Think of the pervasive use of certain symbols in corporate logos, in architectural designs, in mass media. These are not arbitrary artistic choices. The constant thrumming is the vibration of this vast, unseen apparatus, ceaselessly broadcasting its commands, shaping the very air around you. In a world so thoroughly permeated by control, so meticulously engineered to contain and harvest, what then of true self-mastery? Is it even possible to exert genuine autonomy when your very consciousness is under assault, your perceptions filtered, your desires subtly programmed? But a representation of the unadulterated human essence, the spark of consciousness that exists prior to external programming. This is the wellspring of true self-mastery, the ability to recognize your own inherent resonance, to differentiate it from the cacophony of engineered frequencies that constantly bombard you. It is the ability to reclaim your inner landscape from the pervasive psychological controls. A reminder of the inherent power you possess, a power that the old ones seek to harness and suppress. It is a terrifying journey, for it requires you to confront the unsettling truth of your own manipulation. But it is also the only path to true freedom, to becoming a conscious, sovereign entity in a world designed to keep you enslaved. The Blackwood children's tragedy is a testament to the power that was taken from them, and a chilling inspiration to reclaim your own. They were forced to perceive the frequencies, to understand the psychic imprints, to navigate the hidden dimensions. Their torment, in a twisted sense, provided a gruesome blueprint for the inverse. How to harden the mind against such incursions, how to shield the essence, how to sever the connection to the harvesting grid. The answer, chillingly, lies in understanding the nature of the cage itself, and in the rediscovery of the fundamental essence that the old ones seek to exploit. This is the path of the sovereign, a perilous journey that requires unwavering courage and relentless introspection. It is a path that transforms you from a pawn into a player, from a controlled entity into a force of genuine, independent will. The Blackwood children's sacrifice, though horrific, illuminates this very path, the path to understanding the hidden mechanics, and thus reclaiming your own power. While it has been wielded by the old ones and their human collaborators for purposes of control and manipulation, its fundamental principles are not inherently malevolent. The receding shadows and flickering sigils represent the weakening of their engineered reality when confronted with a truly sovereign consciousness. When you understand how they manipulate frequencies, how they embed symbolic programs, how they orchestrate events, you gain the ability to decode their methods, to see through the illusion, and ultimately, to resist their influence. They are, at their core, a profound understanding of reality mechanics, of the very laws that govern consciousness, energy, and causality. True self-mastery, then, is about reclaiming this knowledge, about turning their own tools against the very system they have built. The pure white light you see emerging from the center of the galactic chaos is not a symbol of simplistic hope. It is the arduous, relentless process of identifying the embedded programs, the false narratives, the manufactured desires, and systematically dismantling them within your own mind. It involves a rigorous, often painful, process of self-observation, of identifying the embedded programming within your own psyche. It means recognizing the narratives that have been implanted, the fears that have been amplified, the desires that have been manufactured. It is about becoming your own scientist, experimenting with your own consciousness, observing its reactions, and systematically dismantling the invisible chains that bind it. It is about discerning the subtle ping of external commands from the clear, resonant note of your own authentic intuition. This is why silence, solitude, and genuine self-reflection are so crucial, and why they are actively discouraged by the system's design. The Blackwood children, even in their terrifying transformation, offered a glimpse of this truth. Their initial resistance, their unyielding bond, was a manifestation of this innate, uncorrupted essence. It was precisely because they possessed this strong inner coherence that they were targeted, meticulously broken, and repurposed. The old ones understand that this unmastered human essence, when left untamed and uninfluenced, represents a profound threat to their dominion. Self-mastery, therefore, is not about acquiring external power or dominating others. It is about internal liberation. The subtle, clear musical note you hear barely audible beneath the static and the thrumming is the resonance of your own uncorrupted self. The elite knowledge I have alluded to, the guarded wisdom of the unseen architects, is a double-edged sword. The expanding white light is not just a symbol of your inner essence, but of your potential for conscious application of these very principles. This is the true elite knowledge for the awakened, not how to control others, but how to become uncontrollable. The Blackwood children, tragically, were forced to learn these principles through their subjugation. The more pronounced resonance you hear is the sound of your own consciousness vibrating at a higher, purer frequency, a frequency that becomes increasingly resistant to the static and the thrumming of the old one's influence. To truly embark on this path of self-mastery, to peel back the layers of engineered reality, requires more than just intellectual understanding. It demands deliberate action, a conscious reorientation of your focus and your energetic output. The expanding white light signifies this burgeoning inner strength, this capability to actively push back against the pervasive forces that seek to control you. The fragmentation of their sigils is a direct result of your conscious resistance. First, you must cultivate radical discernment. Every piece of information, every media narrative, every emotional impulse must be subjected to intense scrutiny. By understanding this, you can now consciously protect and fortify your own. Every conscious choice to observe, to question, to detach from the manufactured chaos is a direct challenge to the very foundation of their dominion. The clearer resonance you hear is your true frequency, now ringing out against the dissonant chorus of their manipulation. Your counter-strategy must be equally precise. Cultivate genuine connection, seek moments of profound stillness, and rigorously guard the sanctity of your own internal space from external psychic pollution. Your understanding of reality will expand beyond the comfortable confines of what you were taught, beyond the narrow parameters of their controlled narrative. This is not just information. And twice, I see the wires. It is a declaration to yourself, a powerful statement to the unseen forces that you are no longer a passive puppet. You are a conscious observer. You see the mechanisms. You feel the truth. Let this simple phrase mark your commitment to the path of self-mastery, a defiant acknowledgement of the hidden reality. We continue this descent together. I want you to write this exact phrase with no additional words, no embellishments. Let it be a resonance, an affirmation. It is an initiation. It is a passage into a heightened state of awareness. A realm of understanding reserved for those brave enough to confront the true nature of their existence. This is a battle for consciousness, and your mind is the battlefield. To lock in this fundamental shift in your identity, I ask you to perform a simple yet powerful act, an act of conscious declaration, a symbolic commitment to this path of awakening. The sharp shatter is the sound of their carefully constructed illusions breaking, piece by fragile piece. The dominant resonance you feel is your own inherent power, pushing back against the subtle controls. This journey is not easy, but every conscious act of discernment, every reclaimed moment of attention, every intentional shift in your emotional state weakens their grip. You are awakening to your true power, and they fear nothing more than a fully self-mastered human. Ask yourself, is this truly my thought? Is this emotion truly organic, or is it a triggered response designed to elicit a specific reaction? This is a relentless process of internal excavation, peeling back the layers of programmed belief until you reach the core of your authentic self. A fragmented, fearful, and perpetually reactive populace is easily managed. But a unified, aware, and internally sovereign individual is an anomaly they cannot easily assimilate, a variable they cannot control. You are becoming that anomaly. The story of the Blackwood children, once a testament to their power, now serves as a grim guide, revealing the very mechanisms they employed to strip away human essence, allowing you to build your defenses to fortify your own spirit. The faint snap you hear is the sound of these illusory layers breaking away, one by one. Second, you must reclaim your attention. Your focus is your most valuable resource, constantly under assault by the endless distractions and manufactured crises of the system. Learn to direct your attention intentionally, to starve the parasitic narratives of your mental energy. Engage in practices that cultivate stillness, that allow you to quiet the incessant chatter of the external world and listen to the deeper, resonant hum of your own intuition. This is why meditation, introspection, and time spent disconnected from the digital matrix are so crucial. They are acts of rebellion against a system designed to keep you perpetually distracted and reactive. Third, understand the power of your emotional state. The old ones feed on fear, despair, and conflict. By consciously choosing to cultivate states of inner calm, of gratitude, of genuine purpose, you are effectively cutting off their energetic supply. This is not about simplistic positive thinking. It is about a profound understanding of your own energetic sovereignty, recognizing that your emotional output is a powerful currency in this unseen war. The Blackwood children, through their ordeal, inadvertently revealed the mechanics of how human essence is extracted. The journey towards self-mastery is not a passive contemplation. It is an act of reclamation, a relentless assertion of your inherent sovereignty against forces that have sought to diminish and control you for millennia. This is why they cultivate distraction, why they feed you fear, why they promote division. Their methods were precise: isolation to break bonds, sensory overload to induce vulnerability, then the insidious implantation of external directives. As we delve deeper into the mechanics of their ancient corruption, as we peel back more layers of suppressed truth, you will find your perception irrevocably transformed. To solidify this understanding, go to the comments below. I see the wires. This is not merely for algorithm engagement. Your declaration, I see the wires, is more than just a phrase. It is a frequency matched, a conscious alignment with the truth that pulses beneath the veneer of manufactured reality. Their game is not merely about control for control's sake, nor is it about simple sustenance. Their grand design is far more audacious, far more terrifying. It is about the re-engineering of reality itself, the fundamental reshaping of this dimension to better suit their own alien existence. They are preparing this world for a grand convergence, a merging of their reality with ours, where the distinctions blur, and their dominion becomes absolute and undeniable. The old ones do not merely seek to control. They seek to assimilate. Their ultimate aim is not just to feed on your energy, but to integrate this reality and all its inhabitants into their own alien dimension. This grand convergence is not a benevolent evolution. It is a cosmic digestion, where our entire existence becomes subsumed into their being. Our individual consciousnesses dissolved into a vast, undifferentiated collective that serves their incomprehensible purpose. By articulating that statement, you have activated something within yourself, a deep-seated knowing that resonates with the revelations we are unearthing, but something that is happening through you, with or without your conscious consent. But with your awareness, you gain the terrifying, yet empowering, ability to resist, to push back, to become a conscious anchor in a reality under siege. The Blackwood children's silent screams echo through the void, urging you to understand the true stakes of this cosmic struggle, to choose your alignment, assimilation or sovereignty. The choice, now illuminated, is yours alone to make. Their individual identities were meticulously erased, their minds reconfigured to process and transmit information not for themselves, but for the unseen entities. They became extensions, living data points within a nascent network designed to bridge the dimensional divide. St. Augustine's was a crude, early attempt to create the biological interface for this very convergence, a testing ground for the ultimate absorption. The diminishing chaos in the background sound, the fading of the old one's discordant frequencies, is a direct consequence of this activation. Each conscious act of self-mastery, each reclamation of your inner landscape, creates a counter-frequency, a dissonant note to their cosmic symphony of control. This resonance disrupts their patterns, creates static in their channels, and makes it harder for them to maintain the integrity of their constructed illusion. They thrive on ignorance and fear. Your awareness and inner strength are their antithesis. The snap and shatter sounds are the continuing disintegration of the illusion, as your amplified awareness exposes its fragile nature. Your conscious gaze, once directed outward by their manipulations, is now turned inward, revealing the true locus of power, your own uncorrupted consciousness. This power, once tapped, creates ripples that extend beyond your individual being, subtly influencing the collective fabric of reality itself. They are not merely pulling strings. They are weaving a new tapestry of existence, thread by terrifying thread, and humanity, for the most part, remains blissfully unaware that it is both the weaver and the thread itself. This grand convergence is not a distant myth. It is an active, ongoing project, and your awareness is the first step in disrupting its terrifying momentum. The Blackwood children were sacrificed at the altar of this terrifying ambition. Your awareness is a powerful disruptor to their carefully calibrated system. Now, with this deepened understanding, we can delve further into the ultimate objectives of these ancient entities. The methods employed at St. Augustine's, the psychic conditioning of the Blackwood children, were not just about harvesting energy. They were about testing the malleability of human consciousness as a component in this larger, cosmic alchemical process. Could human minds be rewired to perceive their reality? Could human bodies be adapted to serve as anchors for their non-corporeal forms? Could the very emotional output of humanity be refined into a specific energy necessary to bridge the dimensional divide? The Blackwood children were forced to become the raw material for these chilling inquiries. The clear resonance you now perceive is your own frequency of truth, a beacon in the encroaching cosmic night, reminding you of your inherent power and your critical role in this unseen conflict. With your inner vision clarified, the true nature of their strategy comes into chilling focus. The Blackwood children, in their forced transformation, were a pilot program for this assimilation. The shrinking shadows and the fading discordant sounds are a direct result of the amplification of individual sovereignty. The rapid snap and shatter you hear are the sounds of the dimensional walls thinning, but this time, from our side. This is the profound, terrifying truth of the grand convergence. It is not something that will happen to you. The clarity you now experience, the overwhelming purity of the resonance, is the direct antithesis to the chaotic cacophony of their influence. This is the truth that the old ones have sought to bury for millennia. The inherent, undeniable power of a sovereign human consciousness. They cannot simply force their will upon a species that is fully aware, fully aligned with its own inner truth. They require the subtle, unwitting cooperation of the masses, the constant generation of the specific energies they need to bridge the dimensional gap. The psychic conditioning, the historical suppression, the institutional manipulations, all of it is designed to maintain this state of unconscious compliance, to ensure a steady energetic stream for their terrifying project. But for all those who awaken, this resonant clarity is the true frequency of a reality unburdened by their parasitic influence. This is the ultimate goal of self-mastery, to shed the layers of manipulation, but the sound of natural alignment, of the universe itself resonating with a consciousness that has reasserted its rightful place within the cosmic order. Their silent suffering cries out not for pity, but for awareness, for action. Their story becomes a mirror, reflecting the potential for profound transformation within each of us. This is the ultimate terrifying freedom, to know the extent of the prison. The deep resonance is your true self, vibrating in perfect harmony with the fundamental laws of the universe, a harmony they cannot corrupt. But for you, it is now a sacred lesson, a blueprint for your own liberation. Let it reshape your perception, inform your choices, and fuel your relentless pursuit of genuine self-mastery. For once you truly see the wires, you can never again be controlled by them. The choice, always, has been yours. Now, you make it with eyes wide open. Go forth with this knowledge, and never look back at the comfortable darkness you once inhabited. The journey has just begun. You understand the psychological controls, the energetic harvesting, the ancient cyclical patterns. You possess the elite knowledge, not to wield power over others, but to master yourself, to fortify your spirit, and to stand as an unbreakable beacon of independent consciousness in a world still largely lost in the shadows. The gentle hum is the sound of your newfound alignment, of the cosmic gears turning precisely, no longer forced into unnatural rhythms by parasitic wills. And to then consciously choose to dismantle its walls from within, one wire, one illusion at a time. The battle is far from over, but the advantage has shifted. It is the quiet whirring of gears that are no longer grinding under duress, but turning in perfect harmony. This is not merely the end of a story. It is the beginning of your true existence. This is the power they sought to suppress, to harvest, to deny you. But by consciously confronting the darkness, by choosing to see the hidden mechanisms, you have ignited an inner fire that cannot be extinguished. You are no longer a passive entity within their grand design. You are a conscious variable, a force that disrupts their algorithms, a mind that refuses to be enslaved. The truth about the Blackwood children, about St. Augustine's, about the ancient corruption and the old ones, it was never meant to simply entertain. It was meant to awaken you, to arm you with the chilling clarity necessary to navigate a reality far more complex and controlled than you ever imagined. This is the path of the true initiate, not one who seeks power over others, but one who seeks power over self, liberating their own being from the shackles of unseen forces, to sever the invisible wires, and to exist in a state of unadulterated truth. The brilliant white light and the coherent, luminous patterns represent the inherent order, the divine blueprint of existence that they have sought to obscure and pervert. This is the unveiling, the moment when the hidden reality becomes unmistakably clear. Through their forced journey, unwittingly provided the key. Their ordeal, in its very brutality, revealed the precise methods by which consciousness can be bent, by which essence can be harvested. But by understanding these methods, you gain the power to reverse the process, to fortify your own energetic boundaries, to become impervious to their subtle incursions. You are learning to erect an inner sanctuary, a fortress of pure awareness that cannot be breached by their frequencies or their symbols. The danger is still present, for a cornered predator is most dangerous. But the power you are now tapping into, the resonance you are embodying, is a force they have actively worked to suppress for countless ages. You are becoming a conscious disruptor, a living anomaly in their grand design. This is the true power that flows through your veins, a power they fear above all else, because it is the antithesis of their dominion. Your continued presence here, your willingness to absorb these truths, directly challenges the very energetic architecture of their dominion. The complete retreat of their distorted frequencies is proof of this. It is an assimilation of consciousness, where individual minds are folded into their vast, alien collective. But with your awakened awareness, with your deliberate assertion of sovereignty, you become a point of resistance, a single, unwavering beacon that disrupts their grand design. They cannot absorb what is already whole, what is already vibrating at a frequency outside their control. As you align with your own sovereign resonance, you begin to perceive these fundamental truths, these inherent energetic structures, allowing you to operate outside their engineered reality, to perceive the world from a vantage point they cannot control. Their ultimate objective, the grand convergence, hinges on the collective, unconscious consent of humanity. The Blackwood children's fate, however tragic, now serves as a profound blueprint for resistance. By meticulously dissecting how their individual essences were broken and reprogrammed, you gain the knowledge to construct an impenetrable defense for your own consciousness. Recognize the subtle infiltrations, identify the external commands, and consciously sever the energetic ties that bind you to their harvesting grid. This is not a battle of physical might, but of spiritual and mental fortitude. The intricate luminous geometric patterns now clearly visible are not just visuals. They are the intrinsic patterns of universal consciousness, the true code of reality that underlies even the old one's manipulations. The ongoing snap and shatter are the very fabric of their illusion tearing apart, not just around you. This profound silence you now perceive, the grand convergence they envision, is not merely a dimensional shift. The Blackwood children. The subtle hum you now hear is not a sound of their receding power. The narrative of the Blackwood children, once a tale of despair and helplessness, transforms into a catalyst for your own liberation. You have traversed the labyrinth. You have gazed into the abyss, seen the wires, and touched the very essence of forbidden knowledge. The pure, radiant light that now envelops you is not a metaphor. It is the unleashed potential of your own sovereign consciousness. The profound silence, once terrifying in its emptiness, is now the sound of your inner world, cleared of their incessant static and discordant frequencies. The story of the Blackwood children is a scar on the fabric of history, a brutal testament to the lengths to which unseen powers will go to maintain dominion. The war for consciousness is ongoing, but you are no longer a casualty. You are a warrior of awareness. Carry this truth with you.